Very good morning, class 11. So let's continue with our today's chapter, that is Birth, written by A.J. Cronin from the book Snapshot. We have already discussed the intro part of it. We have started with the reading too. So now we are going to continue. We have read that how Joe Morgan waited for Dr. Andrew Manson and how Dr. Andrew had his bad evening as he had a bad evening with his girlfriend Christine. But still he came with Doctor came with Joe Morgan and went inside where Mrs. Morgan was there. With her there was Mrs. Morgan's mother as well as midwife. And Mrs. Morgan offered him a cup of tea. Now let's see. We are on page 66. "Let me make you a cup of tea, Dr. Bart," said the former quickly after a few moments. So we discussed about former and latter here also. Andrew smiled faintly. He saw that the old woman, wise in experience, realized that there must be a period of waiting, that she was afraid he would leave the case, saying he would return later. So as soon a cup of tea was offered, so doctor realized, he smiled. He realized that because that Mrs. Morgan's mother, as she was old, she had an experience. She knew that this case still required a time. There's a time of waiting, a period of waiting. So she thought that might be doctor would go and he would not come again as quickly as her daughter would require the medical aid, because at that time there were no phones and everything. So that's why she wanted a doctor should be here only while offering the cup of tea and everything. So he smiled, he understood. So he gave the assurance to her. He said, "Don't fret, mother, I will not run away." So he gave the assurance, "Don't worry, mother, I'm here only. I'm not going anywhere. I am here to see this case only." Down in the kitchen, he drank the tea which she gave him. So he came downstairs near the kitchen. He drank the tea. Overwrought as he was, he knew he could not snatch even an hour's sleep. He was already very exhausted, but he knew somewhere that he even can't sleep for 1 hour properly if he went home. So he knew that if he would go home also, he would not be able to sleep even for an hour. So it's better he should be here only. He knew too that this case here would demand all his attention. A queer lethargy of spirit came upon him. He decided to remain until everything was over. So he knew this case required all the attention of this doctor, so he decided he would be there only. Although a lethargic thing came, so he thought that I would not go anywhere. I would be here only until everything would be over, until this case would be solved or resolved or the medical aid would be given. An hour later, he went upstairs again. So after an hour, he went upstairs to see Mrs. Morgan's mother condition. See, although she was in pain, although doctor's help was required, but still, doctor can't even give the medical aid in this case. They need to wait for a particular moment for it. So even he waited for that. He noted the progress made, came down once more, sat by the kitchen fire. So he went upstairs, noticed the progress, and then once again came down. It was still except for the rustle of cinders. So now when he was down, it was a midnight time. He heard only three sounds, although there was a huge silence. So only he heard three sounds. One, tick-tock of the clock, rustle of a cinder, that is the sound of the word, and footsteps of Mr. Morgan as he was outside and he was walking here and there. So only these three sounds he was able to hear. As it's written, it was still except for the rustle of a cinder in the grate and the slow tick-tock of the wall clock. No, there was another sound, the beat of Morgan's footsteps as he paced in the street outside. The old woman opposite him sat in a black dress, quite motionless, her eyes strangely alive and voice probing over, leaving his face. So as these three sounds were there, so he was sitting there and in front of him, Mrs. Morgan mother sat there, motionless there. She was dressed up in a black dress. Now there is the next paragraph about doctor, about his thoughts. His thoughts were heavy, muddled. The episode he had witnessed at Cardiff station still obsessed him morbidly. So he was thinking about all the things which he noticed, especially about the couples or relations there. He thought of Bramwell, foolishly devoted to a woman who deceived him sordidly, of Edward Page, bound to be Shresh Broadbent, of Denny, living unhappily apart from his wife. His reason told him that all these marriages were dismal failures. So he thought about few things about the Cardiff station, about Edward Page. So he realized that these are the dismal failures of marriage actually. It was a conclusion which in his present state made him wince. He wished to consider marriage as an idyllic state. He wanted to think that marriages are like the happy and peaceful, but unfortunately, the cases he thought about that gave the another kind of feeling to him. Her eyes, he could not otherwise consider it with the image of Christine before him. Her eyes shining towards him admitted no other conclusion. It was a conflict between his level, doubting mind, and his overflowing heart, which left him resentful and confused. So he started thinking about Christine. On the one hand, he was thinking about the marriages which were failure. On the other hand, he was thinking about the bright, shiny eyes of his girlfriend Christine. Actually, so he was confused. There were the muddled up thoughts in his mind. He let his chin sink upon his chest. So he was getting very lethargic. His chin was in his chest, so sitting and very lethargic. Stretched out his legs, stared broodingly into the fire. So looking at the fire, staring at that, because although he was in his own thoughts, he remained like this so long, and his thoughts were so filled with Christine. So he was just thinking about Christine, although he was there at Morgan's house. That he started when the old woman opposite suddenly addressed him. Her meditation had paused a different cause. So as he was thinking about Christine, suddenly that old woman, that is Mrs. Morgan's mother, uh, addressed him. It means she started the conversation with him, and then he stopped his thinking. He came back to the present mentally too. So right now only we are discussing it. I really hope it's clear to you. If you are having any doubts, you can ask. You need to understand in this that how he gave the assurance to the mother, doctor, that he would not go anywhere. Then he heard about these three sounds, as well as what happened to him. He thought about the marriages as well as the Christine. So these things we need to remember, right? So any doubt, clear it out. Answer in the worksheet today. Time.